Chapter 8. Kisses. "Do you want to watch them before we go to lunch?" asked Topher, leaning in close since it was hard to hear over the noise of the crowd and announcers. "It might be interesting to see who wins." "We need to stop him," I exclaimed. Pushing against the crowd, I tried to get to the stage. "Get ready, contestants!" shouted the announcer. "Eat!" "Hey!" I yelled, trying to get closer. "Hey! He shouldn't be eating. Jason Kennedy just had surgery on his stomach." "He did?" questioned Topher in alarm as he tried to help me get to the stage. "Is he allowed to eat like this?" "Hey!" I waved my arms as security blocked off the stage. "Jason shouldn't eat. He just got out of the hospital for stomach surgery." "He signed a waiver." The security man stepped in front of me. "You're gonna let him eat until his stomach explodes again?" I was incredulous. "That is nuts." "Everyone signs a waiver. It's their choice to try to win the contest. We live in a free country," the guard told me. The waiver of liability could be invalid if Jason Kennedy is found to be on any prescription that inebriates his ability to think. I recited something I had managed to remember from my time in business college before I flunked out. The contract would be void. That means if anything happens to Jason, it is within his right to sue anyone in association to this contest. The security guard blinked. "She is correct," added Topher. "The waiver he signed would be voided from the beginning, as though it had never existed at all. The contest would be considered negligent for letting him compete, especially when it is common knowledge that he just had surgery on his stomach. If anything happens to Kennedy, there could be millions on the line." "Does it make a difference if Jason insured his stomach?" I wondered. "It does," nodded Topher. "In fact, it makes it worse for the organizers of the event, depending if they find if the event was at fault or if Jason was at fault. The insurance company will calculate a payout to Jason, then launch a lawsuit to get that money back from the contest. Insurance companies tend to have a lot of lawyers. It just depends if Jason is of sound mind or if he was inebriated by drugs." "Wait here," the security guard told us before going to the stage to urgently talk to another person with "organizer" written on their t-shirt. "Where did you learn about contracts?" inquired Topher. "Business school," I answered with a shrug. "My mom wanted me to go to college, and would only fund it if it was a business college. I ended up leaving before I got my degree. I guess some things just stuck." We watched as the security guard talked to one of the event organizers. "Enough of this," decided Topher. "If we wait any longer, the contest will be over." We both went forward to the stage steps. Just as I was about to put my cane on the bottom step, someone shouted, "He's choking!" Topher and I looked up to see a contestant getting hit hard on the back as they bent over the table coughing. A moment later, the guy stood up, breathing okay. An air horn sounded, ending the contest. I kept my eyes on Jason Kennedy. His skin was a gray color, but otherwise he was alert as he watched the judges count how many hamburgers remained on each plate. The judges talked together, then handed a slip of paper to the announcer. "Everyone, if I could have your attention, please," the announcer spoke into his microphone. "Third place goes to Mike." The crowd cheered as Mike stood, taking a bow. "Runner-up goes to Lady Lisa." There was more cheering. "First place for the 10-minute hamburger eating contest goes to Jason Kennedy." In a burst of energy, Jason jumped up onto his chair, then the table, as he waved his hands in the air. The crowd went wild with cheering. "I guess he's okay," observed Topher. "He's insane," I decided. I sighed and shook my head. Hopefully he doesn't plan on eating anything else. We watched as Jason was given a medallion and a check. Gordon, a reporter from the local paper at the Oaks Crossing, took a photo. Other reporters from around the area and state took photos as well. "He should go to the hospital again and get checked out," I murmured. "I can't believe he did this." We waited as the security guard and event organizer went to talk to Jason. They had talked intently to him, and over the noise of the crowd I could hear the organizer insist that Jason get checked out by the medical personnel on hand at the event. "I guess we can go to lunch since it's over," remarked Topher. "I suppose," I agreed, giving Jason Kennedy one last look. Topher and I took our time, walking along the booths and grills, trying to decide what to have. "Ivy!" I noticed Molly waving. Topher and I found her at the Mighty Oaks Christian Campground booth, helping to serve cold drinks while the guys grilled hot dogs and hamburgers. They were raising funds for a charity organization that helped bring medicines to third world countries. "Hey, Molly," I gave her a smile. "How are things going?" "Good," grinned Molly. "Melinda Stratton's makeup started to streak with all the heat. She had to go home." "Nice," I grinned back. "How was the Irish cream dream?" "Perfect as always," complimented Molly. "I might be a little sunburnt before the day is through, but I'm enjoying myself on Team Mighty Oaks." "Good. Could we get some burgers, fries, and drinks?" I asked. "Sure thing," agreed Molly. "Hey, weren't you supposed to be handing out cupcakes?" "The display got shot down," I mentioned. "Someone fell into the cupcakes. The mayor chose to just hand out the handshakes instead." "That is unfortunate." Molly served us our meal. Personally, I thought it was great to have my day back for my own purposes, rather than be handing out cupcakes at the mayor's table. Topher and I managed to find a picnic table that had just been vacated. "If it isn't rude to ask, what do you do for a living?" I ventured, curious about Topher's vocation. He had been on the campground for weeks now, and I highly doubted anyone could be on vacation for that long. "I work as a corporate lawyer," revealed Topher as he dunked a fry in a ketchup. "Some days I have to be in court, other days I meet with clients." "Interesting." I took a sip from my drink. "Do you like being a lawyer?" "It's okay," shrugged Topher. "I kind of got into it since my dad was one. I come from a long line of lawyers. What about you? Have you always wanted to run a campground?" "Not really," I admitted. "I inherited the campground from my grandmother a couple of months ago. When I first came, I had thought to sell the campground. That was before I became attached to all the people at the Happy Campground Resort. Now I wouldn't think of selling. I have always wanted to own a bakery, which is why Molly and I started the Happy Catering business out of the campground." "That is neat." Topher cocked his head to the side as he studied me. "For some reason, I thought you had been at the campground your whole life. You seem to know how to do everything there." I shook my head. "I spent summers there with Grandma when I was a kid. She taught me a lot. I suppose business college might have taught me something as well." "Do you have other family?" wondered Topher. "Just my mom," I answered. "You?" "My dad and a couple of brothers," supplied Topher. "I'm the youngest." "Must have been nice to have brothers to play with," I mentioned, polishing off another fry. "It was. Except when I was the slowest, skinniest, and most accident-prone of the bunch of us," he laughed. "I always got picked last for sports. Truthfully, my brothers are pro athletes, and I'm still the nerd of the family." "You're not a nerd," I defended him. "You're smart, and you have smart friends. How many other people can help with software programs that book stays at a campground?" "Thanks for trying to make me feel better, but I'm okay with who I am. Nerds have become cooler now that I'm grown up," Topher told me. "I used to play Dungeons and Dragons," I offered. Topher picked up his soda, holding it up in a toast. "To nerds." "To nerds," I smiled as I picked up my soda. We touched cans and sipped. Taking a breath for courage, I decided to broach a sensitive subject. "Topher, I have to talk to you about something. I was thinking about the song, and I realized that I may have given you some confusing signals. While I think you are a really nice guy, and I like you as a friend—" "It's okay, Ivy," interrupted Topher. "I understand you're not interested in me." I felt so bad for him. "I'm sorry." Topher shrugged. "Don't worry about it. While it was fun hanging out at the campground, I probably should get back to work before my dad fires me at the law firm. I figured after the barbecue fest, I'll move on." "You and your friends are always welcome to come back," I offered. "I'll give you the family discount." "I will take you up on that," promised Topher with a smile. We decided to find out what desserts might be available at the next booth to finish off our meal. I had promised Topher some baked goods, and we did manage to find a booth that was selling brownies topped with ice cream. "This looks great." A satisfied Topher took a big scoop of brownie and ice cream. His eyes lit up. "Fantastic." I smiled, glad that Topher was enjoying himself. He really was a nice guy. Too bad there was not any spark, unlike when I saw Luca Armand. There he was again. This time Armand was chatting to Melinda Stratton, who was known as the beauty queen of Oaks Crossing. I took a deep breath. "So that is where the way your heart lies," murmured Topher, getting a good look at Luca. I sniffed and grabbed Topher's arm while firmly fixing a smile on my face. "Is there anything else you wanted to see while we were here? I heard there was a competition on for the best marinating sauce for ribs." "We could check that out," allowed Topher, grinning down at me. As we made our way through the throng of people, I may have looked back to see Luca look my way. I snapped my attention back to Topher. And he is not who I like. Sure thing, scoffed Topher with a grin. You only stare at him whenever the guy is around. He's irritating, I said firmly. I heard you pushed him into a fountain, Topher mildly stated. That you previously had a date? It was not a date, I muttered. Luca may have paid for my food, but I think it was more because he felt sorry for me than he was interested in me. Okay, shrugged Topher easily. It was not, I insisted, knowing I sounded petulant and all of 2 years old. I sighed in defeat. Maybe it was the steely blue eyes or the fact that we got under each other's skin that made me feel a spark for Luca. Okay, so I might like the guy. Topher looked at me with a sad smile. Then let's get you the guy. You don't have to, I told him. I'm sure he's not interested in me. I want to see you happy, replied Topher. He brightened up at a thought. Who knows? Maybe he's got a hot younger sister who's looking for a lawyer type. Maybe, I smiled in return. You are a really great guy, Topher. Whatever girl you find, she will be lucky to have you. For sure, nodded Topher as he slung his arm around my shoulders. Now let's go see this marinating contest. I have high hopes that the honey garlic will win this year. I laughed as we made our way through the crowd. I was not laughing long as Thelma found me, grabbing me by the arm. Jason Kennedy collapsed, breathed an alarmed Thelma. He has collapsed, and the police are looking for Conrad and Herb. That dumb police chief is accusing innocent people again. Thelma, I patted her on the arm. I wonder if she had just caught up from yesterday's gossip of Jason dying on my cupcake display and was slightly confused. Jason was okay. His stomach ruptured, but they let him out of the hospital. If he can stop doing the eating contest, he'll be fine. He is not fine, hissed Thelma. The man is dead. The ambulance just took him away. What do you mean, just took him away? I questioned. He was in the hospital yesterday. No, it happened just now, insisted Thelma. We saw Jason Kennedy at the hamburger eating contest maybe a half hour ago, inserted a confused Topher. He was fine. The guy was happy to have won. Why don't you believe me? Huffed Thelma. Jason Kennedy just collapsed after he announced the next eating competition. It was supposed to be a pie eating contest. It happened right on stage in front of everyone. Wow, Topher looked at me in surprise. How unlucky can one guy be? Do you think his stomach ruptured again? I asked in concern. It was a foolish thing he did, competing when he had just had surgery. No one knows for certain why he collapsed, responded Thelma. However, the chief of police said Kennedy died, and he was asking where he could find Conrad and Herb. I think he wants to charge them with murder. That is not going to happen, I assured her. Conrad already talked to Jepson, and he doesn't think the police have a case against Conrad and Herb. Did that stop the police chief from arresting Jackson Grubbs last time? Questioned Thelma. No, I reluctantly allowed. Yet we did get Jackson out of jail and found the real killer. We'll have to solve the murder again. Chief Williams was determined to find Conrad and Herb. I think he's going to arrest them, insisted Thelma. Wouldn't the case have to be investigated first? Asked Topher. I thought you were a lawyer. I looked at him in concern. A commercial law lawyer, explained Topher. I deal with mergers, acquisitions, liability, environmental stuff. Never really handled any criminal cases. You're going to investigate, aren't you? Thelma pleaded with me. Conrad and Herb need your help. You know I will do anything I can to help them, I assured her. Including making nice to the detective you may have pushed into a fountain? Questioned Thelma as she arched an eyebrow. You heard about that? I blinked. News goes fast around here, observed Topher. It's the senior gossip line, affirmed Thelma with a nod. We know everything. It's true, I reluctantly added at Topher's surprised look. The seniors in this town are well connected when it comes to knowing what is happening in Oak's Crossing. Kind of like the secretary gossip train at work, noted an amused Topher. Exactly, exclaimed Thelma. She hooked an arm in Topher's, patting his forearm with her free hand. You know, I happen to like you. There is this lovely young girl I would like you to meet. I think the two of you might really hit it off. What about the investigation? Topher half-heartedly protested. Oh, Ivy's got that in hand, purred Thelma as she led him away. Now this girl, she's a sweet thing who likes animals. Did Thelma just steal your date? Asked a bemused voice from behind me. He's not my date, I automatically protested as I turned to see Molly. Why aren't you with Chaz?" "I was, but I think the festival's getting shut down," she replied. "The police told us to wrap up the booth. They're cordoning off the area as a crime scene. I guess someone died." "Jason Kennedy, the food contest eating champion," I informed her. "The guy who survived a stomach rupture?" blinked a surprised Molly. "Not such a lucky guy after all." "Not really," I agreed. I started to head toward the Mighty Oaks Christian Campground food booth. "Did you overhear anything the police said about it?" "Just that we had to close down." Molly followed me. "Where are we going?" "To see if there are any clues," I told her. "The police chief thinks Conrad and Herb were behind the wires and the meat that Jason ate. If Jason dies and the cause is found to be one of those wires, there could be murder charges." "You're investigating again," moaned Molly. "Hey, it's not like I want to, but these are my friends," I retorted. "They came to our help when we were kept overnight in jail when Bart Baker died." "True," sighed Molly as we came up against the crime tape, unable to walk any further. "Tell me how I can help." "You can help by finding a good lawyer for Conrad and Herb," a voice interrupted. Detective Armand stepped out of a group of police officers to talk to us. A scowl was on his face, and his steely blue eyes flicked my way. "As good as Jepson is, he will need someone who isn't retired to assist him. Your friends are in a mess of trouble and need all the help they can get. Tell them to turn themselves in, but say nothing until the lawyers arrive." "I'm not certain they can afford anyone besides Jepson," I pointed out. "They are pensioners, which aren't the richest of people." "Your boyfriend, the commercial law lawyer, might know someone who does pro bono criminal cases," sniped Armand. "Ask him. I've got to get back to real work." My jaw fell open as Armand abruptly turned and went back to the group of cops, barking out a few orders that had them scrambling. "Oh, my word! I think he's jealous," squealed Molly in my ear as she grabbed my arm, practically bouncing on the spot. "He must have seen you and Topher at lunch earlier." "Just because we had lunch doesn't make Topher my boyfriend," I managed to squeeze out, still a little shocked at the hostility in Luca Armand's voice. "The two of you did look super cozy together," a gleeful Molly said. "Plus, I looked up Topher Welvin's profile. Did you know he pulls in 7 figures a year, is partner in his daddy's firm, and has a bunch of investments? The guy is worth millions on millions, Ivy, and it is obvious to anyone with eyes that Topher likes you. So yeah, maybe the smoking hot detective is a little threatened." "Do you think so?" I wondered, emotions swirling through me. I had a hard time picturing the implacable Detective Luca Armand feeling inferior to anyone. For a moment, I felt like I was standing on the precipice to something which could determine the entire route of my life. Molly laughed. "I know so. I am an expert on men." Impulsively, I ducked under the crime scene tape, rapidly following after Luca. "Hey! Go get him!" cheered Molly from behind me. "Hey!" I shouted again, suddenly nervous and indignant. "Luca!" "You can't be here," one of the cops told me, grabbing me by the arm. "Luca!" I yelled again. "Miss, you need to step back." The cop began to push me toward the yellow crime scene tape. "I will take it from here," came Luca's flat voice as he joined us. "Are you certain?" the cop asked Luca. "I can escort her out of the crime scene, sir." "I'm certain," a grim Luca told him. The cop nodded, then left us. Luca folded his arms across his chest, his eyes boring down into mine. "Yes?" "Conrad and Herb didn't do it," I blurted out through my suddenly dry throat, as any bravado I had felt fled. "I know that," ground out Luca. "Why do you think I told you to tell them not to say anything until they had a chance to discuss matters with their lawyers? It kind of hinders the police investigation for me to advise the suspects not to talk unless I fully believe they were not guilty." "Oh." I felt a little deflated. "What do you really want, Ivy?" he demanded. "I have an investigation to run." "Nothing," I muttered as I turned away. I saw Molly giving me a look of disbelief. Behind her I could see Lizzie Galbraith looking at Luca with concern. Her blonde hair shone in the sun, and she was in another one of those thin sundresses. Shoring up my courage, I faced Luca again. "Topher is not my boyfriend." "What?" a half-distracted Luca asked, his attention fixed on someone in the crowd before coming back to me. I had the sneaking suspicion he may have been looking at Lizzie. My lips flattened, and I poked him hard in the chest with a finger to get his focus on me. "Topher is not my boyfriend." "He sure looks like he is," snorted Luca. "He's been hanging around you like a love-struck puppy for the last month. You haven't been exactly discouraging him." I stared at him for a moment before a big smile crept across my face. You are the worst investigator there ever was. Excuse me? A dangerous note crept into Luca's voice at my insult. Oh, you're great with murder and crime, but with the other stuff, you are terrible, I hastily amended, still grinning. I don't know what to do with you, muttered a frustrated Armand. Ivy, go back behind the caution tape. I have to return to my investigation. Okay, just one more thing, I chirped happily. The thought that he really was too tall flitted through my mind. I pushed it aside. Luca was perfect as he was, each tall, grumpy inch of him. What? He bit off. Lean down, I whispered. It's a secret. Annoyed with me, he tensely complied. I reached up to cup his face with my hands. On my tippy toes, I touched my lips to his. As a first case, it was everything and more than what I had hoped for. When we surfaced, his hands were on my ribs and I was deliciously pressed against them. Both of us were a little surprised and satisfied with the experience. Where we were began to register as we heard some of the catcalls from the crowd and a couple of the rookie cops. We pulled apart as the chief of police approached, a thunderous look on his face. You are fired, Armand.